Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're inviting you to really think about something pretty fundamental, something at the heart of all this talk about AI. What does it actually mean for an artificial intelligence to, understand something? We hear about AI constantly, right? Powerful chatbots, self-driving cars. But how much of that is, well, genuine comprehension? And how much is just really, really clever pattern matching? So our mission today is to dig into Sophimatics, Building Human-Centered AI for True Understanding by Gerardo Iovani and Giovanni Iovan. It's a bold claim they're making. They're actually proposing a whole new science, one aimed at building AI that genuinely understands, that reasons ethically, and interacts with the world in a way that's truly human-centered. And to help us unpack all this, we'll be drawing on their analysis, which references some key thinkers like Bishop, Lange, Bordy, and colleagues, and Sloman. Now, this isn't just, theory for theory's sake. This is about the very foundation of the AI systems impacting your life every day. Whether it's the chatbot you use, the autonomous vehicle maybe driving next to you, or even tools used in medicine. What we're exploring today, well, it offers a shortcut to understanding why true AI comprehension is so critical, and maybe what that might actually look like. So let's get into it. Where do we start with understanding Sophimatics? Maybe with what's wrong now.
It's exactly. To really get what Sophimatics is driving at, we first have to look at the limitations of AI as it stands today. What we generally see, especially with things like large language models, LLMs, are systems based on, well, correlation. They are incredibly good at finding statistical patterns in absolutely huge data sets. But, and this is the key thing, their outputs are fundamentally disconnected from real meaning, from causal reasoning, even from truth as we typically understand it. They don't actually comprehend.
Right, and that's not just a minor detail, is it? Bishop really warns about this, saying this lack of genuine understanding can lead to some serious, grave consequences. We're talking about things like built-in biases causing unfair decisions or AI systems having profound ethical failures. The stakes feel incredibly high.
They really are. And it's a crucial distinction to make. LLMs can expertly, almost uncannily, emulate human outputs. They write text that sounds human, but they do it without understanding the context underneath it all, the reason why something is being said, or even if it's true. They literally cannot know what they are doing. They lack that internal system for reasoning about intent, for making sense of information in context. And without that ability at the foundation, you just can't get to true AI understanding.
And you see the real-world impact of this, don't you? The stories about chatbots suddenly expressing biases or automated cars struggling with unexpected changes on the road. These aren't just small glitches. They seem to stem directly from this reliance on old data correlations rather than understanding the reasons behind things. They spot a pattern, sure, but they can't figure out why it exists or how it should logically change if the situation is new.
Yes, precisely. And even when we try to go a step further, beyond just correlation, towards causal systems, like Judea Pearl's work on the ladder of causation, which is very influential. Even these frameworks don't fully capture that deeper philosophical idea of knowing. They can help map out what causes what, but not that rich cognitive grasp that comes with true knowledge.
Okay, and that reminds me of a really sharp point Bishop makes referencing Ryle's category mistake. For anyone not familiar, that's like mixing up categories, right? Like thinking team spirit is an actual player on the team. Bishop argues, in a similar way, that a computer process that produces information isn't the same as the computer cognitively knowing it. It's like having a flawless recipe, but zero understanding of food or cooking.
Exactly. It's a powerful analogy. And what becomes clear is that if we want to truly simulate intelligence, AI architectures need to do more than just causal reasoning. They have to operate within what we might call semantics and context. So not just processing words, but grasping the deeper meaning, the intent, given the specific situation. The unspoken social rules, the emotional tone, the relevant history, all of it.
Okay, so if the current AI based on correlations falls short, and even adding causality isn't quite enough, what about combining different approaches? Have people tried that, these hybrid approaches? Did they manage to bridge that gap?
Well, yes. There's been work on hybrid symbolic connectionist systems for a while. Lange explored some of these back in the early 90s. The idea was to merge statistical methods, like neural networks, with symbolic abstraction using rules and logic. Trying to get the best of both worlds, really, because neither approach on its own is truly intelligent in a contextual way. And these hybrid systems, they do show some promise. They're better at modeling certain types of learning. They can handle messy, imprecise data better, thanks to the neural side. But they also allow for rule-based reasoning that has some meaning attached via the symbolic part. They can handle multi-layer processing, tolerate noisy data, and still be pretty efficient.
Okay. On paper, that sounds like a real step up. They can handle context, meaning maybe even ethical rules. But you mentioned a catch. What's the core flaw then?
Well, the interesting thing is that many of these systems were designed after the purely generative AI models became popular. They were often created to kind of patch the problems, to address the shortcomings of those earlier systems.
Ah, so not built from the ground up with understanding as the goal.
Exactly. They weren't designed with these principles as their absolute foundation. To really get that deep understanding, context, and ethical reasoning, you likely need an architecture that's specifically built on those principles from the start, not just tacked on later.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. It's about the fundamental design philosophy.
Precisely. And Land uses a great example to illustrate this, what he calls open texture problems. Mm. Think about a legal context, trying to define something like indecency. There's no single fixed rule that covers every possible scenario, right? It requires dealing with novelty, interpreting situations where the rules aren't perfectly clear or set in stone, and that ability to handle ambiguity and novelty, that's absolutely crucial for anything getting close to human-level intelligence.
Speaking of situations where things aren't clear cut and where the stakes are really high, that brings us to the ethical blind spot. Current AI seems to really struggle here. There's a striking example from Bordy and colleagues, right?
Yes, they looked at a specific AI model, a vision transformer called VIT-B16. It was used for medical diagnosis from images specifically detecting Alzheimer's. And statistically, was incredibly accurate, nearing 100% accuracy on classifying the images. Which sounds great. However, despite that performance, because it's purely statistical, purely correlational, it has absolutely no capacity to reflect on what it is doing or what implications come with its decisions. It's like a superpowered calculator that has no concept of the meaning or value of the numbers it's processing.
Wow. Okay, that raises a really serious question, doesn't it? If an AI for medical diagnosis gets it wrong, even a tiny fraction of the time, is that acceptable, ethically? The source really hammers this point. Even a minuscule percentage of error is unacceptable when you consider the ethical weight in areas like healthcare. These systems just can't reflect on the human cost, the qualitative impact of their own performance or their mistakes.
And that really underscores the need, the absolute necessity, to demand more. We need AI architectures that are context-based, that have ethical reasoning built in, that can actually assess situations where you need both accuracy and ethical judgment. It's just not enough anymore for an AI to be statistically accurate. It needs to understand the impact of that accuracy or its lack thereof.
Okay. So we've seen the limitations of current AI. Even the hybrid approaches aren't the full solution. How do we actually build AI that understands, that reasons ethically right from the core? This is where Sophimatics comes in, I assume.
This is exactly where Sophimatics is proposed as the answer. It's framed as a fundamental overhaul of how we approach AI. The central idea is to build systems that have intrinsic principles of intent and ethical reflection baked in right from the start, at their very foundation. These aren't features you add on later, they are the system. It involves taking concepts from ethics, from philosophy, and embedding them at the most basic operational level of the AI agent.
That sounds like a massive shift. It reminds me of Sloman's argument from way back that real science is about generative explanations, not just describing statistical patterns.
It's a very strong connection, yes. True intelligence, Sloman argued, whether it's ours or artificial, has to know what it knows about. It needs the ability to review its own thinking, its own processes, to construct its own model of the world, test it, evaluate it, and even rewrite its own internal processes based on that evaluation. It needs to dynamically model its world and redefine the tasks it's facing, not just react based on statistics it was fed. And connecting that to the bigger picture, Sloman also pointed out, didn't he, that when we discuss a physical law, we ask if it's true, not just if it's useful. For AI to reach its peak potential, its peak usefulness in our world, ethically and meaningfully, the same should apply. It's not enough to just tack on an ethics module that tries to adapt to human values after the fact. Sophimatics argues that awareness, truth, ethics, these need to be built into the core, from the ground up.
Right. That's a profound difference in approach. Okay, so how? What are the key parts, the architectural features that Sophimatics suggests to actually achieve this deep understanding?
Well, the proposal includes features like intentionality-based reasoning. So the AI doesn't just process data, it actively tries to understand the purpose, the goal behind information or a request. Then there's dynamic ontology. This means the AI doesn't have just a fixed dictionary of concepts. It can constantly update and redefine its understanding of concepts and how they relate, much like we learn and adapt our worldview. And dynamic memory, which isn't just passive storage, but an active, evolving internal model of its experiences in the world. When you combine these kinds of features, the idea is They allow the AI to, in a sense, reconstruct the world inside its mind. It can restructure how it interprets things, and by doing that, it can genuinely collaborate, reevaluate situations with real comprehension, even create new meanings. That's how it achieves genuine understanding. And the ultimate goal here for Sophimatics, it's ambitious, no doubt. It's to build systems that interact not as computers, but as people. Yeah. To genuinely humanize artificial intelligence and make the humanization the core purpose and goal in any computing endeavors. It's really about building a future where computers and people are fundamentally closer, working together with shared understanding.
Wow. Okay, that's quite a vision. We've covered a lot of ground here. We looked at how today's AI, mostly based on statistical correlation, really bumps up against limits in meaning, context, and especially ethics. And then we explored Sophimatics, this proposed new field aiming to embed things like intent, ethical reflection, that ability to know what it knows about right into the AI's core design. It's not just about tweaking AI to be better. It's about fundamentally rethinking its relationship with our human world.
So just to leave you with something to think about, imagine an AI system. It's facing a critical decision, maybe in healthcare, maybe autonomous driving, something high stakes. Imagine it could not only perform the task almost perfectly accurately, but could also genuinely pause and ask itself, why am I choosing this response right now? Is this actually the most ethical way to respond in this specific situation? And based on asking this, how should I change my future responses? And two, what would it actually mean for you, for all of us, if technology could truly reflect on its choices like that in a deep, almost human way? How might that change our trust, our collaboration, everything when it comes to intelligent machines? Something to ponder.